We're now going to open the floor, so to speak, to have maybe 3 to 4 rounds of questions. So I didn't finish. I'm seeing handshake. So don't be despondent. Yes.
Good evening, all. I'm Gardner. I have a question for Mr. Gardner or the guy sitting next to him. So since GPL is a large power company, how do you see GPL helping in the mitigation process of climate change by its current infrastructure? And I have another question for
It's going to be very short. It's fine, but you're youth. So
thank you very much. Mr. Admiral Desk, what's the government action plan and how does it involve you in helping to fight the process of climate change, the situation of climate change?
Okay, next.
Thank you, Reuben from the University of Guyana. Unfortunately, my question is a 3-part question. Am I allowed?
I want to keep it short, sir.
So, first question, and this is a general question to all panelists. So far for the evening, no one has spoken about moving into the interior of this country as part of what we do to change with climate change. So that's one. Secondly, this one is for Rear Admiral Best. What is the Department of Climate Change here in the country doing with respect to reforestation of mining lands in the interior? And 3, this is also one for all panelists. What can small countries like ours do to exert the kind of influence which is required to ensure that the culprits behind the climate change, the larger countries with large carbon footprints, to make them take the necessary actions required?
Okay, the last question.
It's Jeremy Yuji. My comment question is the panelists did touch, I think, the element in the room for a country like Guyana that is actively preparing to become a producer of oil. That is the substructure of the climate change we're talking about. So I really think the panelists should address the issue of how the potential of the producing country do the PR or the actual things to help mitigate and deal with climate change, because we soon start actively contributing to that business.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the Admiral to probably start. And Dr. Gardner, I know you have some points on the oil and gas, and remember I posed some questions to you last week on that as the energy expert. Please.
There were a flurry of ways managed to capture the related directly to me. I think the one on reforestation, minute lands, that is done not by the Office of Climate Change. That is done through Ministry of Natural Resources, in particular the Guyana Forestry Commission in conjunction with the DGMC. The DGMC is the key. They're the bad boys in the room. Mining by nature degrades the environment, by nature. In fact, I actually coined the term, maybe the term exists, about sustainable mining. There's a big debate on whether you can have sustainable mining. But I have a formula for it. So the issue here is Guyana Forestry Commission is responsible, but the challenges they've had with reforestation is what species you will use. And one of the big debate is on whether we use the acacia species, which is a fast-growing species, and it's very invasive. You have to create sufficient berms to protect it. Or we can go back to the natural forest, which is very difficult. But I don't believe, not that I don't believe, I would say to you that for reforestation effort is minimal. We're not doing enough as a country to reforest. You go to Peru, you'll see, so that's a big climate negative for the area. My own view is that we move apace with reforestation. But to answer your question, it's with forestry. Limited work is being done and more should be done. Youth in climate change, I think that's the question you asked. The Office of Climate. Well, the Office of Climate Change doesn't have a youth department. Is it the Office of Climate Change or the Government of Guyana? The Government of Guyana. Well, it's a good question because I think the big criticism is that there are not sufficient youths involved in policy and planning. If you go to Article 13 of the Constitution, it talks about all Guyans being involved in the decision-making process. I think essentially we have to create more intersection points and entry points for youths to be involved in decision-making. I think, from my perspective, I think that's, I don't want to say a work in progress. I think it is perhaps difficult for the decision makers to recognize and understand the importance of youth involvement. So I would say yes, I hope that recognition becomes obvious. I'm saying all that to say that there is sufficient involvement of youth in the decision-making process, specifically in climate change, and more will have to be done in that regard. I don't want to score the government of Guyana, I don't want to scale from 1 to 10, but I would say to you that much more is required to be done. The Office of Climate Change in particular has reached out from time to time to deal with youths and meet youths across the country. We've advocated for offices of climate change at the region to be established within the region so we can get youths involved. But those are structures in proposition and not yet agreed to. I don't want to keep the mic too long, so I hope that I addressed the two questions. Sorry? Two. There's another one? It's for me, I think. Yes.
I know this question was directed to Rear Admiral Best, but I would just like to add on the restoration of mining sites. It's been an area of advocacy for one of the organizations associated, the Policy Forum. And one of the things we've been pressing for is for this to be revamped. Because when you look at the environmental deposit that's made by mining companies, small and large scale, it is very minimal. And they would rather pay that deposit and leave it there and have it write off because of the cost that they would have to incur. It's very minimal, and if the government is to take that back on, it doesn't match what that deposit that they're paying right now. So that entire system needs to be revamped.
Thanks. Where to start? GPA. Captain, with your folks. Right, so you asked the question about what role could GPA potential play in climate mitigation given the quality of the system and the environment rights. All right. The truth is that, I'm not trying to tell a story or to be laugh, but the truth is that you have a utility that is trying to manage multiple things at the same time. On the one hand, in the areas that are currently served by the GPL, that means those who are connected to the grid, there's this issue of reliability and stability of the power. Reliability meaning you can get power 24/7. Here's stability that you get in the power without your lights flickering and bright and dim from time to time. So there's a challenge of having to deal with the reliability and the stability where the power really exists. And then there's the challenge of having to deal with also meeting some of the new customers who are in unserved areas, or trying to reach some of the unserved customers. There are those two things that are there, that are required. And then while all of that is going on, there are the pressures around what we could call becoming green in terms of its generational arrangement. So it's many different pieces that GPL is jumping at the point as a utility. So I actually sympathize with them. It's not easy because grid, to start with, the grid that they currently operate is not in the best of shape, to say it mildly. There's not a lot of investments that is going into the grid right now. And the fact is that it's always difficult to manage and maintain infrastructure that is in countries like Guyana, so where the population density is very small compared to distance over which the grid infrastructure has to be run. Anybody who understands the laws of physics know that the longer the transmission lines, then the more likely you are going to lose, the losses, the higher losses going to be, both in terms of technical losses, as well as, technical causes, more chances to put steal some along the way. So, the fact is that losses, from my understanding, from what I've read, the non-technical losses have diverted a lot of the revenue base from GPL, and as a result, a lot of investments have not gone back into the grid. And so the grid is a starting point. The efficiency of the grid is a starting point. Currently, it's about 28% the losses, the transmission distribution losses. And when you put, looking at the generation system, the generation system, there are significant inadequacies in the generation systems. Not even talking about the fact that it's fossil-based. Efficiency with which power has been generated. The average heat rate for the generators are around 8,200 BTU per kilowatt hour. This is around 10% higher than 10 to 15% higher than what is average standard in the industry. So GPL would be 10 to 15% less efficient than this industry standard in its generation. Then the transmission and distribution, as I said, is around 28% loss. Industry standard is 5 to 6%. So you're almost 5 to 6 times higher than industry standards there. And so when you look at just the efficiency the losses alone from generation and transmission and distribution, there's a significant amount of gain that could be made in terms of carbon reduction and so on, from just efficiency alone on the GPL side. And we don't want to look at what could happen behind the meter if GPL decides to enter into an active demand response program that targets people and the way in which they use electricity to power their 6 televisions and their 3 refrigerators and so on. So the bottom line is energy efficiency is a significant opportunity that GPL could actually embark on. It's a quick way. It would be cheaper, it would be easier, and it would save a lot of losses, and it would provide some amount of mitigation as a starting point. And within that whole context too of GPL and efficiency and losses, there are options and opportunities for GPL to also look at the way in which it currently, if you want to call it, is expanding its operation. It's bringing to Guyana to look at leapfrogging some of the conventional methodologies and no longer focus on just extending the existing lines, but rather to build mini-grids and microgrids that could serve these areas. And also, in a sense, facilitate the introduction of some amount of renewables, because these mini-grid and microgrid systems are much more efficient and much more effective and can actually facilitate much more renewables introduction. In fact, even if GPL wanted to put wind and solar into the grid right now, it's going to be difficult to put significant amounts, because, which is why I started with energy efficiency, because the critical issue is that because the grid is so unstable, the grid is not modern. It means that you would run the risk of the system becoming destabilized by the fluctuations and variations in the solar and wind generation if you were to inject too much of that. So that grid issue, I think, is a primary point of concern, because without fixing that, it also limits your ability to put certain types of renewables into your grid. And that is where I will stop at the GPL.
Okay, we have to make much further. We still need to comment on the oil and gas. If you can. No? Okay, so
The
passionate Dr. Gardner. I don't know for you, but I can sit and listen to him speak for quite a while. It slipped me to remove my position from my little description there. Because I work at GPL. Let me say this quite clearly. I am not a decision maker at GPL. So I'm not the one to be flayed at GPL, please, thank you. So I remove myself from the playing line. As Dr. Gardner said, there's a whole host of engineering initiatives that go into integrating renewable energy and moving towards a sustainable energy generation portfolio. What we have done, and this is where I'm going to restrict myself because I'm not here representing GPL, and I don't want to turn up to work tomorrow and hear that I don't have a job. Which won't happen, but you know, what we have done is advertised recently for 3 expressions of interest. For 3 sites, for 3 utility scale solar sites. One in Admiral, one in Robertson, one in Guyana. That was a public expression of interest. The intention is to shortlist from that public expression of interest to move to a proposal stage where we will enter into what is known as a build, own, operate arrangement, which is a type of public-private partnership venture. So essentially, the construction firm or whoever it is will build, own, operate the utility-scale solar project, and we will buy out for them. So there are 3 projects, solar scale, coming up, 3 megawatt utility-scale solar, and there's also ongoing negotiations and progression on finalizing the Home Beach project. That's a private developer, so there's very little that I can put out on my own as to what is going on with the project, but it is moving forward, and it's moving closer and closer to realization. So in terms of diversifying at this point, as Dr. Gardner pointed out, there are restrictions to technically what you can put and how you put it. But we are making moves to have a greening of the sector, at least a little bit. I hope that answers the question.
I think there was also a question about what small countries can do, and maybe I just need to point out that in the negotiation process, at least at the UN level, that you don't go as an individual country as such, but in the context of Guyana being part of the Alliance of Small Island Developing States, AOSIS, and also AOSIS is part of G77 and China. So normally you will have your meetings for that, and you will agree on positions, and then you allow the larger bloc to negotiate on your behalf, and that's how the Caribbean was able to get the 1.5 scale line to be part of the discussions for the COP23. In terms of the interior, I think the question was asked about why we're not also talking about the interior regions. We know that the interior regions would have been playing a very significant role in the climate mitigation through the low carbon development strategy that was based on avoiding deforestation, but also we have to invest in climate adaptation, particularly based on studies I've done in 9 communities around the Guyana. As an example, you have very shallow wells, and so during the La Nina phenomenon, you can have the contamination of water. So the residents are asking for deeper wells and that sort of thing. So there is work going on. I also know that Civil Defense Commission, through the disaster risk management, risk reduction process, that they're working with the communities. Let's take another round of questions, please. So, all right, we have 3 already on the, so please, 1. Can I see the other hands? Go ahead, please.
Good night, everyone. Do you think Guyana should invest in processing food as an alternative to the harmful effects climate change would have on agriculture? That's an open question for anyone else.
Yes, I live in Abu Dhabi. Only 20% of our economy comes from oil and gas. We sit in 15% of the world's reserve. The bottom line here is very simple. And I'm going to tell you, oil will never go back to $150 a barrel. What is Guyana going to do when it develops all of this fossil fuel, climate change is quickly at a rapid pace. What is your game plan to move people from the coast inland to move away from fossil fuel to renewable energy? By 2050, the UAE will generate 75% of its power from solar. We have 700 megawatt solar plant being built right now. What is Guyana going to do to match us? We set up 15% of the world's oil and gas. Come to Abu Dhabi and see what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Timothy Cullen, Cornelius Rutherford, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Guyana. The executive summary provided by Vice Chancellor on Professor S. Mandel on water management systems to protect our coastline is indeed the premise for my question. And the variabilities of such on pressure in tide and in our atmosphere is equal to the opposite pressure of our jet stream. And Dr. Bynoe, the question is directed to you. You mentioned that our atmospheric concentrations have fallen by 0.1, which was unprecedented for as much as 800 years or so. Integration calculus and growth of decay would put the time frame at 500 years in order to correct such a situation, meaning that any sharp increase in fertilizer application would have affected our trophic efficiency by as much as 0.8 or at least 0.3 to cause a storm. Dr. Bynoe, are you aware of any information on sharp increases in fertilizer or industrial activity in any of the tropical countries over the last year? Thank you very much.
Okay. So let's start with the first question. Maybe. Okay. So let's start with the first question. Maybe our representative from FAO would like to.
So the first question was on food processing. I think yes, it would be a good avenue, and we spoke about. My colleague here spoke about the increase in the population, the global population. We'll have that increase also in Guyana. There's a lot of food wastage. I'm not sure what numbers are for Guyana, but I know that there's probably a lot of food wastage here. So food processing is always a good way to go to try to ensure a bit more food security in the country. I don't think that we can't go wrong with that. We always need food. We need farmers 3 times a day. Just to add a little bit on the question of what can small islands do to encourage the bigger countries to take the necessary action. Dr. Bynoe spoke about negotiating. I myself, a past negotiator, I was able to be part of the team negotiating the Paris Agreement. It's not an easy process. The Paris Agreement didn't happen in Paris. It actually happened, it took 4 years to get to Paris for the Paris Agreement to come about. We are small islands. We have to have one voice when we go there. So we have the AOSIS, we have the G77 in China. We have to have that one voice when we face those big countries. Because they would come there, a delegation of 50, 60 people, and we would go, Guyana have 2 people, Grenada have 2 people, Trinidad have 2 people, and they're sitting in a room and they're changing out their people, and we have to sit there for 16 hours and 23 hours in one room for the entire day negotiating, right? Another thing I would think we have to become less dependent on these big countries. Because that dependency, because the process is very political, and that dependency is what actually pushes what happens at the international level in the negotiations.
On food processing, I believe that it's the way to go for Guyana, of course, and this is because value added is where the money is at. So just the raw export that we've been exporting, we can be earning a lot more if we process food, and this can be done in a sustainable way. And I just want to mention the rice cereal that Guyana has just launched through the IAST. This is rice that our farmers are producing on the Essequibo coast, and it's been done in a sustainable way. and now we have a cereal that would be available regionally and it's available locally. So that's just a small step of where we can go if we add value to what we produce, our agricultural produce.
I'll touch on more into interior. Before I say that, I think going back to what Dr. Gardner said, my colleague from I thought it was Trinidad today. It is important to understand the politics of climate change and the politics of negotiation. So I think your last comment is stop, let us depend less on the developed countries and organize ourselves nationally and regionally and go back to our own national processes, take ourselves where we need to go. I think that's the best way forward. We don't have to be part of that international engagement. Secondly, I think there's a niche market for carbon neutral products. And it goes back to a point made by Dr. Gardner in terms of GPL. Perhaps one of the things GPL could look at is to remove the G, because that might be the big elephant in the room. If we go to competitive bidding for energy, we probably bring down the cost. I think we have to step outside of the box a little bit and be a bit more I would say cautiously adventurous. If we can bring the cost of energy down, even if it's a fossil fuel, it means we begin to make an impact. I'm not suggesting we remain in fossil fuel. I'm just saying if we can bring it down, or if we bring it down to a competitive process, then we can have renewables coming into the grid, even though the grid has difficulties. The thing about it, we don't have to do the entire country first. We can take an area that is a productive area, like a rice producing area, and if we transition to renewable energy for that rice producing area, we can therefore market and brand our rice as a carbon neutral product. So there is a market for carbon neutral product, and in that context, the question that you're really raising, in terms of processing food, then we want to go organic, Ghana could go organic and create a new product. In terms of moving into the interior and what we'll do with the revenues of climate change, well, let me say what advisor to the President of the Environment, not a decision maker. My own personal view is it will be, I think it makes a lot of sense to plan when we intend to move from the coast into the interior. It's something we should do. We have to be very careful where we go, because if you're alongside the Admiral, you're not out in the same zone. So I think we need to identify the 100-year floodplains, markers in the country, and determine where we have the best set of soils and lands. Use the 100-foot floodplain marker to build new towns and new cities. My recommendation has always been to use the anticipated revenue from oil to drive the green economy. And that's what we should do. And that green economy should not only rest on sustainable energy, it should be sustainable energy and agriculture, which is food. In addition to which, we know fresh water will become a commodity that we can sell another decade or so. So yes, I agree we should move into the interior, but we have to do the research first, determine where we're going to go. And secondly, we should use the revenues anticipated, albeit from the oil and gas sector, to drive a green economy and create our own niche market. Thank you.
Okay, on the question that we heard from the PhD student at the University of Guyana, unfortunately I do not have specific countries, but I do know that I raised earlier, because they figure that in the 800,000 years, I mentioned this was in the IPCC fifth report. We also know that nitrous oxide, which is one of the major greenhouse gases, related to fertilizers as one of the sources, the main sources, so that we have to look at countries that are very much into agriculture as a very dominant economic activity, and whether or not within the context of those countries they're moving towards more organic agriculture with less fertilizers, which of course, apart from the whole issue of greenhouse gases, we have to look at other environmental issues related to contaminants in the water and that sort of thing. So I would not want to make assumptions about countries, but I think that that can be had from the IPCC report and other reports on the specific countries. I would not want to name a country. If you're international relations student, you know that has implications for you to stand and name a country if you do not have the fact. And also to tie it with what I said earlier, that we don't guess, it's evidence-based. So I am not going to give any specifics on that.
Colleagues, just to mention, because it came up twice, the whole issue of the oil production in Guyana and climate change. So I just wanted to touch on two quick things related to that. Number one is that whether Guyana sells oil or not, the oil will be sold. Oil is not going to be disappearing anytime soon within the global energy economy. If they don't get it from Guyana, there'll be more shale oil to fill the gap. The demand is there. It's not going to disappear in the next 70 to 100 years, so it will come from wherever the sources. What is going to happen is the oil markets will get the oil from wherever it is most cost effectively produced, and if it's not coming from Guyana, they will find the next best cost center to get the oil from. So let's not fool ourselves that if we don't drill in Guyana, then it will minimize the amount of fossil fuel use in the world. It's not going to happen. Number two is the fact that if Guyana actually explores and exploits that oil, there's the option to use the associated gas from the oil to do generation, to the power generation in Guyana. And the truth is that, as you know, the associated gas to the power generation might actually, in fact, serve the country well in terms of climate, in terms of carbon reductions, because gas generation is going to be far cleaner than to the renewable generation. And I've made the point that there may be environmental or climate footprints from some of the renewable generation options that we are considering that could actually end up with the gas generation options and gas generation arrangements providing with net overall impacts. Let me give you an example. If one starts to look at what would happen in Guyana, if you may not necessarily introduce the natural gas generation into the context of the energy sector within another, say, 5 or 10 years, and you were waiting on renewables, the ability of Guyana to transform its energy sector from where it is now to become 100% renewables is going to be very limited and less and not likely. But with some amount of gas as a bridging fuel, it will allow for the introduction of renewables much more systematically. And with the oil revenue, as Admiral has said, there is the opportunity for Guyana to therefore eventually reduce its carbon footprint by taking care of some of those measures as well as social and economic development which would have done otherwise, which may have resulted in a higher footprint had it not gone that route. So that is something that we think has to be balanced. What would it have been without the oil? And what would the footprint be without the oil? Because without the oil production, the footprint is not going to be necessarily lower than with the oil production, because the economic base of the country may actually require the country to produce more greenhouse gases, doing other things outside of the power sector that may actually make it in a worse environmental, if it a worse environmental footprint than if it was producing oil.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for the panelists. Thank you. I know this topic has generated a lot of interest, but in the interest of time, I would like to say thanks to the panelists and thanks to the university for giving us this opportunity. Obviously, this is a topic that can have many, like a series, and you can zoom in on climate change and different sectors. So I would like to turn over to Professor Mohammed, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know that there are a lot of burning questions, and there's an opportunity after the formal session for you to engage in bilaterals with the panel. We have to be sensitive to the staff of the Pegasus. We have the room for a certain amount of time, and there are some other things that have to happen. So I'm really sorry that we have to interrupt, but that's just what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give the panel a thunder round of applause. Be sure to grab them in the next couple of minutes. We usually do a presentation to each one of the panelists after they've presented, and they've been adjudged to deserve it. But today what we'll do, we'll ask everybody to stand up just to save time. Come over here and we're going to just present VC, everybody at once. Or maybe just in front here, so that we can save some time. Chanel?
So good evening, everyone. On behalf of Deputy Vice Chancellor Professor Paloma Mohammed and Pace, we would like to present our very distinguished panel a special token of our appreciation this evening.
So that's a speed presentation. And now I would like to invite the young man who is part of the new UGSS, University of Guyana Student Society executive, to give a vote of thanks. But before he does that, I want to just say that there is a cocktail afterwards in this room, probably a truncated one for about 40 minutes. Which you have time to speak to each other and the panelists. And the Vice Chancellor is going to give a special toast immediately afterwards to mark this first anniversary. So may I please invite now Mr. Shakil Bourne of UGSS to deliver the vote of thanks.
Much taller. Protocol having been established, good evening. Former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, once said, and I quote, "We are the first generation to be able to end poverty and the last generation that can take steps to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Future generations will judge us harshly if we fail to uphold our moral and historical responsibilities." End of quote. It is indeed an honor to deliver the vote of thanks today. We are delighted to have been enlightened by such thought-provoking points as emanated in this evening's discussion. Truly, I am now more knowledgeable than the way I entered the ballroom. As a university, we have come a long way from our inaugural Turkeyen Tain talks on our debut topic titled Britain, the EU, and the rest of the world, a reality check. The organizers of these events must be complimented on success after success. UGSS Executive Council would like to thank the panelists for providing such intellectual discourse on the topic of climate change. Moreover, I'd like to thank our esteemed moderator, Dr. Bynoe, for performing such an impeccable task this evening. Sincere thanks are extended to the representative of the FAO, Mr. Reuben Robertson, and his staff, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Reuben, who extended such a warming welcome, Deputy Vice Chancellor of CASE, Professor Paloma Mohammed, as well as all the panelists listed on this evening's program. Special thanks is also extended to several people who have consistently partnered with the university to make this series of events successful. These include CEO, Mr. Robert Vidal, Ms. Ramlagan, and staff of the Pegasus Hotel. Thank you for providing this astounding venue to host our discussion. The ambience truly added to this auspicious event. Ms. George and staff of the University of Guyana Learning Resource Center, Ms. Paulette Paul, PRO and staff of the Public Relations Department, the Personnel Officer, Mr. Jeffrey Walcott, the Registrar and staff of the Registry, Mr. Denise Bram, Director of, Mrs. Denise Bram, Director of the Center for Communication Studies, and all other staff of PACE. Mr. Malcolm Williams, Mr. Kyle Craig, and members of the Government of Guyana's e-governance unit, the local media corps, and Mr. Neil Suglal and staff of Impressions Inc. We are also grateful for the work of those members of the university community who serve as the ushers, and to you, the civil society participants who grace us with your presence and ideas from the floor and online. In this special first anniversary edition of the Turkeyen Tain Talks, we wish to recall the presentations of all our past 53 panelists and also the sterling support of the audience who have made these talks vibrant. I implore everyone this evening to share the conversations with your family and friends. Further, I'd like to suggest that a transcript of the discussion this evening be made available to the Ministry of Education so that it can be accessible in the classrooms of our country, so that the next generation can be in a more informed position than we were. If nothing, one thing we definitely have in common is that we share this planet as our home. Let us continue to do all we can so that Guyana's place in a climate-altered world can be one that is not just prosperous, but one that ensures the safeguarding of our planet. Thank you.
You see now why they won the elections in PGXS. Very good job. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're finally ending this part of the official formal part of the program. Thank you very much for being here. Please partake in the refreshments that are in the room. Stay, talk to the panelists, ask them the questions that you want to ask them. And I'd like to hand the microphone to BC now so that he can do whatever it is that he wishes to do now as a special reminder of today.
Round of applause for Professor Muhammad. Being the Vice Chancellor allows you to put some people on the spot now and then. And so I'm going to invite a couple of individuals in the audience who have been part of a panel, either first, third, fifth, seventh, or ninth. Now I asked if we have some champagne, except that it's Guyanese champagne, coconut water. No? We have non-alcoholic champagne. We have Guyanese coconut water where the rum has been extracted out. But I really want to invite a few people who will be part of panels to be part of this toast. And so I'm going to invite Ms. Vincent Alexander, who is one of the panelists and one of the people to come up and offer any comment by way of helping us to celebrate the fact that this is an important milestone. There are very many projects that start that don't get to 10. And we have consistently got hundreds of people in the rooms and in the out there's. We've had 53 or more panelists share their expertise. I'm going to call in Mr. Alexander, I'm going to call in Deputy Vice Chancellor Scott, I'm going to call in the Registrar. And if I see any other individuals who have been in panels, in whatever role, I'll invite them to help us celebrate while we get, while the stuff comes around. So Vincent, round of applause for Mr. Alexander.
Thank you very much, Protocol will be observed. I would simply like to say that the Turkeyen Tain Talks, in a sense, takes the University of Guyana, brings it to the community, involves the people, and allows the university to do what university should do. share knowledge and help generate knowledge that goes towards the development of the society and the country at large.
Prof. Scott, followed by the registrar. And if I see anyone on this side who has been a panelist, I'd invite him as well.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols having been established, I duly observe. The university emerges out of the community. And quite logically, the university must connect with what it emerged from. And I think the Turkeyen Tain talks has been an important dimension in the University-Guyana's connection with the community. I participated in the one on suicide. We recognize what an important issue that has been, and as I would always say, it's an issue which relates to life. And if you want to celebrate life, then we have to deal with those issues which really has impacted life. So I found it very useful as part of that particular Tain Talks, Turkeyen Tain Talks. And in addition to everything else, it allowed us all, community and panelists, to share our thoughts for the advancement of our country.
Thank you. Let me invite Dr. Nigel Grazandi, our registrar, to offer a few toast comments.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. It is not yet Advent, and I don't know why I have non-alcoholic champagne. Having said that, the Tain and Turkeyen Talks present an opportunity for intellectual engagement on a range of issues and to have a conversation with key policymakers, government, private sector, NGOs that can enrich the process of dialogue as we seek to ensure that our country benefits essentially from the collective wisdom across the spectrum. And the university in 2018 will continue that opportunity. We thank the visionary leadership for ensuring that Turkeyen Tain Talks become an integral part of the university's academic calendar. I want to raise my glass and ask that you join in a toast for the continuation of Turkeyen Tain Talks.
Hip hip hooray! Well, I'm not sure what the plan is to distribute all the other glasses, but let me invite those of us who have a glass to raise a toast, and I'll say hip hip and you say hooray. Hip hip! Hooray! That is good louder than that, Admiral. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! To Turkeyen Tain Talks.